Good morning. Good morning, Demi. So, first and foremost, welcome to Venice, even though by a contactless connection. But welcome to Venice. Thank you so much for being with us and for being the first leading protagonist of this year's encounters, contactless encounters, that thanks to MasterCard, main sponsors of the Venice Film Festival, will allow us to make a connection between us, journalists, you, stars, and an audience which is composed by young filmmakers, cinema lovers, I mean, all the world that you, I think, Demi, relate to in your work. So once again, grazie per essere qui con noi. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this. I've always wanted to come to the Venice Film Festival. And how amazing. I mean, given the givens of the time we're in, this has great challenges, but within it, being able to do this is really remarkable. I was thinking before we started today, like, imagine going through what we're going through and not having this kind of access to connect with one another.
My first question, I mean, is a question that would sound normal in normal times, but now it has become a very precious question to ask to someone. How are you?
I think, all considered, I feel like I'm doing really well. You know, this isn't an equal opportunity virus or pandemic, and so I really know how fortunate I am, since we're all going through this, but we're not all having the same experience. I tend to really try to look for what something's giving us as opposed to what it's taking away. And exactly like this opportunity to be able to connect, to be able to continue on with the festival that otherwise wouldn't have been able to happen at all. So I feel really good.
Good.
I almost feel timid to say that, but I am finding goodness in this challenge.
That's good. I think we have to thank MasterCard for first believing and realizing this chance of talking about connections even without contact, without physical contact, and for letting many, as I said before, young filmmakers, cinema lovers, to experience a talk with stars like you. So my first question is about inspiration. We are here also to give this audience a new inspiration. So my first question about this is, what are inspiring you still today in your work, and what had inspired you throughout your career?
I think early on, it was things for me that opened up questions and conversation, things that pushed me beyond what I knew, or just what the status quo was. So in a way, I guess the simple answer to that is I was definitely moved by things that were provocative. And I don't mean just in a sexual context, but things that really pushed us to think outside the box. And, you know, in the very early days for me, I think so much of what inspired and moved me was about exploring how to love myself, how to find myself, and and in looking in different ways to discover the different pieces of me. You know, I shared about this in my book that when I was 15, I lived in an apartment building in West Hollywood, and one of the other residents was Nastasia Kinski. And that is what opened, you know, my eyes and helped move me to make the decision to pursue a career in acting. She spoke English beautifully, but she didn't feel confident in how she read it. So I would read scripts to her aloud. And there was something that she had that was so magical, so self-possessed, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I wanted it.
That's so interesting as an answer, because I think that love for ourselves is a great driver that normally arrives to you when you're, in your 40s, in your 50s. It's so difficult to explore and to focus on this driver when you're young. So congratulations for having focused on this so early in your career.
I remember as a kid seeing certain films and really being moved.
Such as?
I can go all the way back to saying films like Philadelphia Story, or a film like Sweet Charity, to then, What a Way to Go, to then seeing Funny Girl. And then I think I was really awakened to something different when I saw Kramer versus Kramer.
Wow, wow. How do you prepare for a movie? If you want to give us a single sample of one single movie, or in general, how do you prepare for one single movie?
Well, let's see. They're all somewhat different in terms of the physical side of it. So I've obviously had to do very different things. For G.I. Jane, I certainly was doing very different prep on a physical level and exploring different aspects of the military, looking at really the elements of what women were facing at that time, and particularly in the military. And so that was a lot of just physical training and hardcore physical training. They put us through a modified, SEAL training. And like Ghost, obviously, I had to do my best to learn how to work the potter's wheel.
Wait, not just the potter's wheel, but because each and every time I see you in Ghost, I always ask myself about a miracle you made in that movie, the way you cry. How did you manage to cry in such a realistic way in Ghost?
I don't know. I don't know. It's just what came. It's just what came, and I know it's become such an iconic moment. There was something for me that I felt it was really important to be still. That it needed to speak for itself, and that if I gave too much emotion, that it would steal from the moment.
Speaking of your work and the work on the set, Were you ever given a single advice that you still lean on today while working?
You know, before I started to pursue my career, I had an opportunity to go watch the taping of the television show Happy Days. And which was it was a really big deal that I, was invited to go. And I was invited to go with someone who had a friendship with a person in the cast. Gary Marshall was there. And I think I was maybe 14 and a half, 15 years old. I was introduced to him, which he did not remember when I saw him many years later. But it had an extremely profound effect. Out of nowhere, he said to me, if you could harness that energy, you could really do something with it. And for whatever reason, it was almost like a divine message that was coming. It didn't land or have any impact. His life went on, but the resonance that held for me was life-changing.
Life-changing.
And
yeah.
absolutely, because I think it gave me an awareness that I didn't have of myself. And because I didn't really have a lot of parental guidance, so I didn't have that reflection in other places, it just completely brought me into myself and put me in a direction to make a decision of what I wanted to do at 15 years old.
Very clear and very interesting. Thank you for this wonderful answer. We just talked about advices. Speaking of advices, what kind of advice would you give today to women embarking in a film career?
It's such a different time. So there's certain things that just aren't of my experience in terms of how it works today. But I think at the core of it, I think the common denominator is really you have to really want this. And you have to really be willing to put in the effort, knowing you're going to face a lot of rejection.
Hard task.
It is, but it's so I think the biggest thing my biggest advice, I guess, would be don't take anything personal. Don't take anything personal, and don't look for someone outside of you to validate you.
Bellissimo, bellissimo, wonderful, wonderful advice. We now have many different ways of watching movies. What is your ideal, favorite way of watching movies? Maybe you have different favorite ways of watching them. Tell me.
Well, I still love going to the theater to see a film. My one hope, I would say, as we move forward in this time when we're seeing so much more being distributed just directly, through the different outlets through cable, is that we don't lose the value and the ability to show films on the big screen, because that's just magical.
Speaking of that magic, do you remember your first epiphany at movie theaters when you were younger? A single movie, a single screening that you will remember today?
I have to think about that one. Like I feel like there's so many. What keeps coming to mind for some reason is Bonnie and Clyde.
Wow.
I don't know why.
But because it's a seminal movie. I mean, it changed the I mean the American cinema, Bonnie and Clyde, and so maybe for this.
Yes, I think there was, I don't know, there was something in the look and feel and also getting inside of seeing people that are considered bad and feeling their humanity. And of course, I mean, Faye Dunaway was like,
Wow, wow,
so, I
yeah.
mean, that, like, I remember that, I feel like Network, speaking of Faye Dunaway, and I remember vividly going to see The Eyes of Laura Mars.
Hmm. Interesting, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and we just spoke about different formats, different way of watching movies as a moviegoer, as a viewer, but as an actress, as a star like you, who worked in different formats, blockbusters, small independent movies, TV series. Which are the differences that you found in working in these formats? And is there any favorite format that you prefer?
Well, the format that I'm the most familiar with is definitely film. And, there is, I think that is still definitely where my passion lies. But of all the things you've mentioned, the one thing that I haven't yet had a chance to explore, and I would very much like to, is doing a long form, a high end series. Because for me, that is like watching mini films. There's just 8 or 10 of them. The ones that I feel are done and with beautiful, cinematography and production and I think as an actor, the reason I'm interested in that is because it's an opportunity to develop a character over time,
Yes.
where you don't get that when you have, one script and a very clear beginning, middle, and end. I mean, to be able to do that over, 8 to 10 hours versus an hour and 40 minutes, I think would be really wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. I wish you to fulfill this single dream that you described in a very clear and rich way. But I know that, if I'm not wrong, you just acted, you just starred in a movie called Songbird, whose theme is a very eloquent theme for us today because it's a pandemic thriller. Can you tell, it's produced by Michael Bay, can you tell us something about this movie, your role and your experience in it?
So, it's about a pandemic in the future, the near future, that was shot during a pandemic. And I think it's a cautionary tale. It's the version of what happens in our worst nightmare with this virus. And it's looking at a world that has separated between those who have and have not, and the desperation and fear that can take over, and and it was the first film, from what I understand, to get the green light. So in a way, I felt like we were kind of the guinea pigs. You know, we were the test case to see if it could work, as they were slowly rolling out a new version of how we can work safely. And my character is a woman, a mother, a wife, who's resorted to some black market dealing to survive for her family. And it's a world where if you're immune, which my character is, you have almost you have a free pass to move about where everyone else cannot.
I'm longing to see the movie. I'm longing to see you in this movie. I was, while you were answering, while you were talking, I thought that you, all throughout your career, you've been a real strong role model for women in cinema. I think one of the few of doing this throughout the 80s and the 90s. I don't know if you know that in these years, main competition for the Leone d'Oro, the Golden Lion here in Venice, for the first time, not just in the history of Venice, but in the history of all the film festivals in the world, you have in the lineup for the Golden Lion 8 women directors. So we're making history here in Venice. So my question to you is how motion pictures today can play a strong role, as you played, in order to make women more confident.
You know, as we hear over and over, representation, you know, is by far one of the strongest ways in which we can support other women. There being 8 women is what encourages the little girl, the teenager who's, you know, my goddaughter, who's 12, who is an aspiring filmmaker. So like knowing that there are other women that they can see taking on these different roles that, you know, had predominantly been held by men is what I think makes the difference. I know for myself that you know, one of the things also for me that I really want to focus on is I'd like to work with more women. You know, I just did a narrative podcast with Shauna Festi, and it was an interesting new, you know, outlet creatively. We were able to do that during the pandemic and the quarantine, and now we're, you know, taking it out and exploring working on that as a show. But I really enjoyed working with a female director, and I haven't really had that much opportunity.
Speaking of lands, speaking of connections, what is your connection to this place, to Venice? I mean, when I say so, when I ask you so, I'm asking you about the physical connections, the times when you had the chance to be here, but also the you know, Venice. It's like a city of the mind. So also of your fantasies, Venice in your mind.
So I've only had the good fortune to be in Venice once before, and you know, there's something really magical and romantic in its idea moving from place to place in a boat, and being that close to the ocean. It's really, there's nothing like it anywhere. And some of the beautiful architecture, and but I need to come back. I need more time there.
The main title of this series of encounters is Seeing Life Through a Different Lens.
Mm-hmm.
What gave you the chance in your life, or maybe in your work, to see the life through a different lens? I mean, cinema. We believe. We are here, journalists, moviegoers, film lovers, actors, stars, directors. We believe in the power of cinema to let us see the life through a different lens. Tell me about this in your experience.
I mean, I think, look, that is the gift that we have, to be able to either bring a reflection. It's almost like the reflection of the inner reality. We're able to bring that out, but we also have the opportunity to bring awareness to realities that through these different lenses of perception. I mean, I look at, like, step away from work or career to life. The reality is that how we hold something is everything. What's really going on. Our lens of perception is what creates our happiness and well-being. It's not what's going on outside of us. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. And I think cinema is just an extension of that. And we have an opportunity through the lens of filmmaking to bring healing and awareness, and to really create change.
Cinema can be a tool for conveying social issues. On this matter, are there stories that you would like, social stories, that you would like to be portrayed, to be narrated on film?
That haven't been done?
Yes.
I don't know. I haven't. I don't have something, right here to say to you. Oh, this one or that one. One of the things about it opening up to have outlets like Apple and Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and HBO. Is that it has opened up opportunities to see different things that we might not have had, particularly in the world of documentary filmmaking. Mm-hmm. I mean, I happen to be a bit of a fan of true crime personally. Mm-hmm. And find myself gravitating towards those stories, even though that's a bit dark, and I don't know why. Sorry, my phone is ringing.
No problem. Is the technology, the contactless connection? I mean, it's the world. No problem.
It'll stop. I'm sorry.
and that sound of the phone gave us the chance to watch once again your wonderful smile. So that's perfect. That's perfect. While you were talking about technology, I was watching the wonderful doll that you have, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes. It looks like, from.
So go ahead. It's an Italian doll.
An Italian doll?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
It's from, I think either late 20s, early 30s. It's of Marlene Dietrich, and it was from a woman that was very, very successful. Had a company which I don't. You can help correct my pronunciation. A Lenzi doll.
Ah, a Lenzi doll. Wow. And my last question is, when you think of your work, what would you like your legacy would be in movies?
Oh, wow. I guess I don't think of myself in that way. I think, that I guess for it to be seen as courageous
Wow.
and when I think of Indecent Proposal and Disclosure and G.I. Jane and in particular, there even striptease. There are things within that kind of all have a connection of pushing outside of the norm, of the status quo. They push you to really, they all ask very provocative or brought forward very provocative questions. And I think I was seeking, answers to those myself, which is why they were attractive to me to do.
Bellissimo, bellissima risposta. Wonderful answers that, speaking of connections, is connecting to the beginning of our interview when you spoke about getting out of the box. So it's getting out of the box. So thank you very much, Demi, for letting us going out of the box with you today. And thank you for your time, your precious time. Thank you for your smile. Grazie, grazie da Venezia. I wish you the best in this.
Thank you so much for your time, and I thank MasterCard for making this opportunity for all of us.
Grazie.
Thank you.